everyone, and welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have with us, representing the Clintonville slashers, I have with us today, he's a filmmaker, and he has a movie out, self-named Clintonville slasher. I
Yeah.
have with us Louis Morug. Louis, welcome to the Horror Realm, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on, man. Pleasure having you on. So tell us a little bit about the Clintonville slashers.
Okay, well, see, the Clintonville Slashers is a club that I started back in 2020. We started it for our town because we were tired. We wanted to put on our own haunted house. And when COVID hit, we decided to make movies instead. So when I was in high school, I wrote a 10-part book called Vampire Blood. And every story that I've put out so far is a chapter from that book. So it starts off with the Pigeon River Slayer, and it follows a guy named Kevin Allen Morug, and he is a he's a serial killer, and he's just about to be put to death, and he escapes. Now, he is a serial killer, and he's like the prophet of Satan, is what he believes.
Wow.
So that film ends, and then the sequel picks up, which is called Cannibal Cafe. Now, Cannibal Cafe has to do with the main character, Brian Russo, from the first film that you meet in the first film, and Kevin. And Brian finds himself a year later, after Kevin has completely destroyed his life, finds himself in a cafe on Christmas morning with a couple other people, and they drink like these. They get complimentary like mimosas, and they drink them. They pass out because they're drugged, and then Kevin's there, and slowly, one by one, he takes them out, and he does this blood ritual. Well, then one of the characters escapes. He goes and finds the Lords of Night, which are a rogue motorcycle club that lives in the town, but they're descendants of Knights Templars. Now, they go and they foil the plan, and then Kevin says, "Well, I'll meet you guys in the woods," which brings us to part 3, which is called The Legend of Freak Forest. You learned a little bit more about the devil. Her name is not actual Satan; it's actually her name is Mullen, and she was Jesus's lover. They were together, and she made the sun for him, and when Jesus spent too much time with his creations, she whispered sin into her ear, so he banished her from the garden, banished her from the light, so she could never walk in the daylight again. Hence she becomes the very first vampire. So you kind of learn a little bit more about that. Then the third one ends, and it does 20-year time jump to which is called the Night Howler. You learn a little bit about what happens to the Lords of Night, like how their story kind of ends, and you learn there's a lot of open-ended questions in that, which will bring me to part 5, which also is a prequel to everything, taking place back in 1984, which is the film that I'm currently working on.
All right. So 2 questions. So you started off, and you breezed past it pretty quickly. You said that you started off wanting to do haunted houses, and you went into movies. How did that work out? I mean, how do you go from like I get it, but how did you break it down? Like you were like planning on making haunted attractions, and then you just went straight to movies.
Kind of. Well, we were okay. So it was a drunken conversation. We started it in the bar, and we were talking about a group of me and a couple other people, my wife and everybody. We were talking about like how much it sucks to stand in line and drive 40 miles to stand in line for like 2 hours and pay $60. So we're like, let's put on our own.
It fucking sucks. Yeah.
It does suck. And so we tried to put on our own haunted house, and we got all the costumes. We had people telling us, hey, you could use my barn. We had everything set up, and then COVID happened. So we're left with all these costumes and ideas. So I said, I went back and through the first story that I went back and found the original copy of that story, which is like book is like this thick, and I dumbed it down to a 10-part movie series that we could do, and I started with the first one, and it was really successful, so we just went back and just started doing them. So since 2020, we put out 4 films.
Nice. So being a rookie in 2020, you never made a movie before you were a writer. That must have been fucking terrifying.
It was, but I really had a really good crew. I filmed all these with my cell phone. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm the none of us are professional actors. We're doing this all just for the love of horror. We do it completely for fun. And then it's just kind of spiraled into this really awesome thing where people around town like have heard about these films, and everybody kind of steps forward and say, "Hey, will you put me in your next movie? Hey, will you put me in your next movie?" And so now I've got like a cast of like 20 people. When we only started with 4, and now I've got a bunch of like 10, 20 extras that want to be in the movie too. So it's really become like a phenomenon here in town. So it's been a lot of fun.
Now, was it tough converting your stories or written form into feature length? Was that tough? Did you have to make some edits? Did you have to chop a couple of things out? Did you add some things in?
I did have to dumb down the story a little bit, but I've always thought about it as a movie beforehand. When I first wrote this story, I was like 10 years old when I first wrote the very first story, which was titled Vampire Blood, after a nightmare I had. So I kind of just built it off of that. And then when I got into high school, I had to do like this project in high school called a senior project to graduate high school. So I wrote the book and I turned it into 10 chapters. But I had always envisioned it when I was writing it throughout the entire process I envisioned it as a film. I thought it would make a really good movie. So I kind of wrote it in that way too. So when if you ever read the story, it's almost written like a script, because I was envisioning it being a movie, but it was really good. It was a lot of fun to do.
I bet. Now, so when you were writing, you already had it broken down from sequel to sequel.
Yes. Yeah.
Form.
So I knew that the 10th story, and like I am terrible at writing this, so I'll write something and I'll change my mind halfway through it and think of something better, or somebody else in the crew would come up with a really good idea and we'll go that way. But I do know that part 10 in the film series is that all the characters that you've met throughout the first 9 stories, and all the good guys and all the bad guys, will have one last big battle. And that's like their one last. So every character you've ever met is they're going to square off and have one big battle at the very end of the story. However, how I'm going to get there is kind of like the process.
Okay. Now, what are some struggles? I mean, you've done this straight out of the bag. Now, what are some struggles that you've ran into as an indie filmmaker?
A lot of the struggles that I think I've run into the most is, like timing with people. The scheduling has been really tough. A lot of the struggles is that I can't, I see something in my head and I can't make you see it. So I have a hard time like explaining it. So when I explain it to somebody, I've already thought about it 100 times. So when I explain it to somebody else, they're like, "Oh, what? That doesn't make any sense." I'm like, "No, it's going to make perfect sense. Just let me do this part first, and then we'll do this part, and it'll make perfect sense." There is a method to my madness, but it's hard to explain it to people. But a lot of the struggles is I think the biggest one for me was definitely thinking that I couldn't do it. Is that I was always talking about, "Oh man, I really love to do this. I really like to do this. I really like to make a movie. I'd love to make this movie." And I was just too scared to do it, And I just, one day when the pandemic was going, I was like, "Fuck it, let's have fun with it." Who cares if it becomes this big motion picture or not? It's still something I have to get out of my head and just give it back. Put it on YouTube, put it for people to see. Just put yourself out there.
One great thing about the pandemic, I've done several interviews, and it has forced, authors, writers, even myself with my YouTube channel to say, fuck it. Because even with my YouTube channel, I was doubting myself, well, I'm not going to do this. I've been pushing it for the last 2 or 3 years. And finally I said, fuck it. The pandemic was like perfect. I was like, let me fucking do this. Great thing about the pandemic, it forced a lot of people to do something that they were terrified of doing.
Yeah, definitely. And that pandemic really pushed people that were bored into doing the things that they love. So it was good in that aspect, although it wasn't good for everybody else. It was a pretty crappy thing to happen.
Yes, it was.
So
now, so with each movie, so are you trying to grow? Like each one, are we going to see a new development?
Definitely. Yeah. I like to write things where I like to sprinkle a little bit of like unanswered question in one film. So when you get to the next one, you're going to see a bigger story. And a lot of things that didn't make sense in the Night Howler are going to make total sense in the Clintonville slasher. And then things that don't make sense in this film will make sense in the next one. And it'll just be there's a lot of characters that are being introduced and a lot of characters that get a backstory. So there's going to be, as a whole, it'll make sense when all 10 films are done. So, but yeah, definitely progressing forward, especially with editing the way the things I've done. Because when I first started, I didn't even know how to edit. I didn't even know how to put the entire film together. So when you watch the first one, you have to swipe through everything because I just put it in video after video because I didn't even know how to do it. So it was a total learning as I go. I'm still learning things. I'm still trying to figure stuff out. So
that's amazing. Now, the two important questions. What is the gore level? Are we getting low, medium, or high?
You're definitely getting a low for the first film. You're getting a very low horror element. And then the second one sequel picks up throughout the film. So the second one picks up a lot better. There's only 3 kills in the first film as opposed to like 6 in the second one. The third one has a few kills in it, but the kills that are in it make sense. Those are like big name characters that get taken out. And then the next film, the last film, The Night Howler, was just a bloodfest. I mean, that was a lot of fun. And that was my first attempt at doing like CGI filters to everything. So I really had fun with it. I did this really cool like green tint to it because I really like classic, creature feature films, especially back from the early 30s and stuff like that green tint they'd have. So I really tried to capture that. And we shot this movie in the summer, so it was a werewolf film that takes place at Halloween, and none of us wanted to wear that werewolf mask after we were done with it because it was like 1,000 degrees in that thing. There's a few different people that are playing the werewolf I'm doing it a couple of times. There's another guy doing it a couple of times, and all of us at the end of the day were like, we are done. We are totally done with this werewolf mask. I've taken it off. I haven't put it back on.
I see behind you, yes, some of the classic horror.
I got Frankenhooker. And then, in case of werewolves or that's vampires, Night of Living Dead, and some other stuff over here.
Now, who would you say is your number one inspiration when it comes to horror filmmaking?
Definitely, I think my number one inspiration is Stephen King. It's always been a big inspiration to me. I have loved his creativity. That's really how his films all kind of like center around the Dark Tower and everything kind of goes together. It's kind of how I like to write. I've always been a massive Stephen King fan since I was 12 years old, and I read Pet Sematary. It scared the shit out of me. It was a good. So Stephen King. Some of my personal horror influences. My biological mother, she was a diehard horror fan. She definitely scared the shit out of her a lot of times. So she watched the original Exorcist. Took her 3 times to do that. But like in the 80s, when I was born, I was sitting at her lap. We were watching Freddy Krueger, fucking The Stuff. We were watching fucking, the original Friday the 13th and, all Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers. So like I've been having horror in my face since I was like 4 years old.
That's the same thing with me. I'm gonna say I saw my first one at 4 or 5 years old. It was the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And
good movie. Good movie.
Yeah. Good excellent. And because I hear my local people say, "Oh, my first movie," my parents showed me was Wizard of Oz or The Lion King or some shit. I'm like, mine was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and everyone came right after that one. So
yeah, definitely. So yeah, same with me, man. If Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, I remember vividly renting that movie with my mom and coming home and watching it, and I can remember like this scared feeling I got from the very first time sitting on our lap watching that movie. And that movie is so good, and it literally could be the perfect horror film. And I will quote Ken Sledge on this one because he's the one who told me this. But there is a deleted scene from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and it has the fact that Nancy had a sibling. and they didn't. They took that out of the movie. When mom pulls out the glove and shows it to her, she tells her that you had a sibling, and Freddy Krueger killed that sibling, and that's why we went and burned him in his boiler room. Ooh. And they left that part out, and they put that stupid blow-up doll mom and that dumb car in it, and they left that good part out. If you would have done that, like if you would put that in, it would have been the best movie ever, because I cannot believe they didn't do that. Oh my God, that just makes the story that much better.
I was the biggest Freddy Krueger fan, like growing up as a kid. Like I had two action figures. I had there was this bendable one. He was it was impossible to bend. And,
yeah.
And I kind of wish I still had that motherfucker, because I was at a horror convention, and somebody was selling for $250. I was like, damn. I'm talking about out of the box too. I'm like, fuck. I also had they also made a Freddy Krueger Barbie doll. I don't know if you remember this, but
I remember those. Yeah,
he was like a Ken doll, and you put the Freddy Krueger, and you put the fucking mask on, the glove, and everything. I was fascinated with Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, definitely. Freddy Krueger's always been one of my favorite horror icons. Like I said, it was the first one I ever got into. And then after that, it just kind of down spiraled, kind of up spiraled. I got my hands on my very first Stephen King book when I was 12. And that really made me love reading, because I didn't really like reading before that. But I love reading the way King writes things, and his short stories are really good. And so definitely Stephen King's one of my biggest inspirations.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to ask you 3 horror questions. As you know, this is a horror channel. I'm going to ask you 3 random horror questions. You ready?
Yep.
All right. The first one. You can reboot somebody comes up to you, and you have to reboot any low budget iconic B horror movie. Which one would it be?
Oh, dude. Frankenhooker.
Oh, okay, that's yours. I thought so.
I would definitely love to see that reboot, but I want to see Patty Mullen be the doctor and then turn a guy into the Frankenhooker. I kind of want to see the roles reversed. That would be really interesting, because it would be cool to see Patty Mullen go back to reprise that role, because that's literally the greatest love story ever told. Well, I love that story, love that movie so much. We actually named our band Frankenhooker. So
love it, man.
I love that movie. That's one of my favorites.
That's a good one, man. You're the first one to say Frankenhooker, and I should have guessed that because I saw it on the wall. All right, second one. F, Marry, Kill. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Let me think of a good one.
Okay.
All right. F, Marry, Kill. We're going to do Jennifer from Jennifer's Body, which I've never seen, but the chick from Species.
Okay.
And fuck it. Have you seen Return of the Living Dead 3?
Yeah. No, not the third one. Just the first
one. Okay. Shit. I can't think of it. Frankenhooker.
Oh, I'm marrying Frankenhooker. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to kill the chick from Species, and I'm definitely I got to think for Megan Fox, so.
Okay. I'm trying to think.
Jennifer's Body's good. You should check that out. It's a good movie.
I gotta check it. Everybody keeps saying it's good, but I'm telling you the reason I never watched it, because it fell in line when all those teen horror movies were coming out.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were fucking bad. It was one was coming out every fucking week.
Yeah.
They're all PG-13, and it fell right into that pit, and I that's when I kind of tuned out from horror movies for a year or two.
Right. So I get what you're saying, but the plot is really good. The characters are awesome. Megan Fox does a really good job, and I cannot remember the other actress that's in her name. I forget her name, but
Amanda Seyfried, I think.
Yes, that's it. Plot is really good. The CGI is done very, very well, and it's not done often, but it is done when it is done. It's done super well. The transformation that Jennifer had is really cool. The ending is awesome. I mean, that's one of my favorite endings of all time.
Okay, so I'm gonna watch Jennifer Body.
Definitely, it's I can see where you're coming from, because I don't really care for them teen, PG-13 films either. but Jennifer's Body holds up. That's a banger.
Because that came out like the same time. I'm trying to think. I want to say it came out at the same time as like Teeth and Ginger Snaps, and it was like a whole bunch of like teenage girls killing men movies came out like in this weird time span of a year, and I just like I thought about like I've seen two of those already. I get the premise, okay, men are rapists and bad men, and some girl's gonna kill them or something. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of those movies were kind of like ruined for people that love horror to go see it, because you had that whole Twilight shit crammed down your throat forever.
Yeah.
And that just got annoying as all hell, because like then you weren't want to. Well, see, now here's a cool story. I actually built some of the sets of the very first Twilight film.
Really?
I got a job. I answered an ad in the paper, and there was somebody, they were looking for people to build sets for the Twilight movies. And my neighbor Ron at the time, he worked like building sets for like TV shows and stuff like that. And you go around the whole state. So he got me the job. I went out there. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but there at the very end of the movie, there's the big like dance ballet place. Actually, I actually was there when they put that in. So that was a fun. But all I knew at the time of helping, I was only there a couple weeks, but all I knew at the time was it was a movie called Twilight, and it was a vampire movie. So I was really excited to see it, because I was like, this is like my first, taste of like show business. This is so awesome. And I went to go see it, and I'm like, holy shit, this sucks. And I found out there was like 8 more sequels, and I'm like, this is going to be terrible. And then I didn't watch them. I never watched them at all until my sister was super into him. And then my wife was like, no, you got to check him out. You got to check him out. So she hounded the shit out of me for it. And then I finally saw him, and I was like, no, these movies suck. They're pretty terrible.
Because there was one that came out too. During that same time. It was called Warm Bodies. Do you remember?
Yeah,
it was about a fucking woman a teenage girl falls in love with a teenage zombie. Like, it was like a bunch of shitty movies. Like horror, I don't know what time frame that was, but horror, that was a bad time for horror.
Yeah.
In that time frame, it was like a 2-year time frame where they were making it harder for like teenage girls or something. I don't know. It was weird.
Teeny bopper horror films. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. It was pretty weird.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Third one. Okay, I'm gonna ask you this: what iconic horror character would you say that you relate to the most?
Ooh.
I'm not saying that you're out there killing people or anything, but
Who do I relate to the most? God, that's a really good question. I guess I would be more like a mixture of like Freddy Krueger and Jason, or Michael Myers. Like, got that, kind of like I could be funny, and how he's funny, but then there's like moments where I'm super quiet and kind of like push back, and cause just kind of thinking in my working out thoughts in my own mind, and kind of just sit back, like kind of like Michael Myers, just kind of catatonic walking around. But definitely I'd say I'd be a mixture of those two. That's a really good question though.
I'm gonna switch mine too. I used to say Freddy Krueger, but nah, I'm actually more Michael Myers, because like in my personal life, I don't talk a lot. Like I am more of an introvert in my personal life. Yes, I come on here, and if the real Travis came on this channel, no one would fucking watch. I'm more of an introvert. Like, hop on here, I become an extrovert, and because you have to, But yeah, in my real life, I'm more of a Michael Myers. I'm thinking like I love spending time alone. Like, I love being alone. Like, I don't need friends. You know what I mean? I'm like, I just like being alone.
Yeah, and like some of my best friends that don't even live in this state, I've made so many great friends, especially the guy I do my YouTube channel with. I have second YouTube channel called The Dead of Night Broadcast, and it's ran with me and my friend Josh Benson, who was their very first interview I ever did was with him. and on my channel, and we decided we were going back and forth on each other's channels. Like I'd be on his channel one month, we'd review a movie, and then he'd be on mine to review a movie. And I said, fuck it, let's make one massive channel. So we've had Ken, and we had Ken Sledge on there talking about The Dark and the Wicked. We have Johnny Noise from The Morning Noise talking about Poltergeist. We talked about a couple different films. We just recently reviewed My Bloody Valentine this month. So
Sweet.
yeah, like I have a few friends around here, man, but like most of the friends I have are in on the internet that I've never met in person.
That's what I say. I agree with you. I have a bunch of internet friends. But like, I don't know. It's just, I did an interview like a couple months ago. I was like, when there's something weird when it comes to men. Like, once we get about 35 years old, it's not important hanging out with other dudes. Like, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't become important. It's not fun anymore. Like, like
yeah. You're not in your 20s anymore. You kind of get into the point where you're like too old to go to the bar. You just become the old dude at the party.
Yeah, like women can have girls' night and hang out with their girlfriends all the way up to until they fucking die. Like men, once we get about 35, we're like, like I reach out to them every once in a while, but like it's not. Friendships are not important to men once we reach about 35.
Yeah. Especially married men. I'm married and I've got 3 kids, so I don't have time for anybody.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Married men in relationships, don't care. We don't care about friends.
No, I got my kids. They're all crazy and drive me nuts, and be on your toes.
So I mean, the only reason to go to bars and clubs in the first place was to get pussy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm coming out as a man. Like women go to the bar and clubs to, we're gonna dance and socialize and sing and shit. Men, no, we're not going to the bars or clubs with a bunch of guys to dance with each other or pay for overpriced drinks.
I actually met my wife was actually like one of my best drinking buddies forever. So that's that she was one of my best friends, still is, but like she was my friend for like 10 years before I even got together with her. So, and that's all we did was
both worlds.
Yep. Yeah, we got together and she helps me a lot on my movies. She helps a lot because I'm a terrible speller, so she has to proofread everything. And then I've got my kids. My kids are all in my movies too, so that's been a lot of fun to get them involved. They love doing it, so that's a lot of fun because my dad and I we were never into. My dad was never really into horror movies, so having that interaction to like pass my knowledge on to my kids is a lot of fun, and to see them have fun with the idea of like, oh, you're in a movie, this is cool, and like they don't, they're not scared of like regular monster stuff because now that you're making movies, you're like looking for things that like, oh, well, that's cool, I'd do that, or oh, I love the lighting in this shot, and like you look from that, and like sometimes that loses the magic of the movie, but a lot of it is like, well, you can learn a lot from the way other people do it,
As a dad, would you have been upset if your kids absolutely hated horror?
I guess I would, but I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. My oldest isn't the big swerve, and my middle son, not the horror fan. My daughter though, she will watch anything. She loves Annabelle. She loves Pennywise. She's totally into it. Whatever. As long as the monster isn't like taller than her, like she's cool with that.
She's down for it. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, Louis, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Oh, you can find me on the Clintonville Slasher on YouTube. You can find my name on Facebook, Louis Marug. You can find that same on Instagram. You can find my band, Frankenhooker Band, on Instagram. And all music from Frankenhooker is on my YouTube channel, so you can check that out there. You can follow me on the Dead of Night broadcast as well, with me and Josh.
Listen, everyone. I like promoting people's YouTube channels. Go down in the description. Click on my man Louis' YouTube, subscribe, like, and watch his stuff. Louis, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. This was fun.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
No problem, man. Listen, anything else, man, just let me know. I'll have a spot for you.
Awesome, brother. Thank you. You'll have to definitely check us out or join us on Dead of Night sometime. That'll be a lot of fun.
Listen. tell me the day, and if I'm free, and tell me, give me a couple of dates, and I would definitely love to be on that.
That'd be a lot of. I would definitely enjoy that.
All right, well, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.